this video we'll be seeing how to use Bloom filters to predict if a property is available in the database or not. So let's get into the problem. So first we will see what will happen without the Bloom filter and what will happen with the Bloom filter and what are the advantages of using the Bloom filter. So let's understand what a Bloom filter actually is, and before even understanding what a Bloom filter is, we'll actually see what a hash function, because you need to know this in order to know what's a Bloom filter. So hash function is literally a function which takes in some string as a parameter, and it gives us back some number. So that number can literally be any number, or it can be in the range of some x to y. So that actually depends on the hash function that is available. So that's what it does. That's what hash function is all about. It takes in some string and gives back some number. So the important part to note here is that the number output that what we are getting is that can be used in many ways. Which depends upon the application. So in this case, this hash function and the index which we get from the hash function literally decides the strength of the Bloom filter. So as I said, Bloom filter is an array which consists of zeros and ones. 0 actually represents that it is not available, and 1 represents that it is available. So what do I actually mean by that? So let me tell you the big story here. So what will actually be happening here is that as we talked about the hash function which uses some number, so when we send some string into the hash function, as we know that it gives back some number, right? So we'll be using that number to check or set the bit in the Bloom filter array. So you can see that there's some string going to the hash function. Let's say it gives us back the number 59. What we will do is we will set the number or the index 59 as 1. So what does that actually mean? So it means that some string which this some string is available in our database, and this represents the availability of the collection of strings. So this is what the entire function of inserting a string into the Bloom filter is. So let me tell you once again. So that goes like this: we enter some string, and this string goes into the hash function and comes out a number, and we mark the number in the Bloom filter as 1. So if it's 0, we'll mark it as 1. If it is 1, we will leave it as it is. So we'll not disturb that. So eventually what we'll be seeing is it's 1. So why is this even important? So why is it even important to check if why is it even important to mark this as 1 and then putting in some of these complex hash functions? Why is this even needed? So to understand the basic need of Bloom filter, we have to see into a scenario of why we are even using Bloom filters. So let's take a scenario where Bloom filters are not used. We are not using Bloom filters, and let's see how it goes. So there's a client which is, let's say, browser. He or she is querying with the name John, and they are asking to the server if any user is present with the name John. So what we will usually do is the server will query database, and it will check if there is someone with name John, and the database will give us the reply. So if he or she exists, it will return back the response, or if it doesn't, it will tell the client that the username with John is not available. So if you have to think the scenario that this is going to happen, like if you take any big piece of software or any software with high traffic, so what would happen is you would get this request like almost like maybe thousands and thousands of times per second. So you have to query the database every second thousands of times. So that is really costly. If you take the resources and if you take the server load, I think that's really costly. This is where Bloom filter comes into play. So let's see how this is going to be with Bloom filters. So here's the case with the Bloom filter. So the client, let me resize this. Client similarly queries the server if there is someone with username John, and the server this time does not query the database immediately, but what it does is it queries the Bloom filter here. So what that does is, we have talked about the hash function, right? So in order to check the Bloom filter, you need a hash function so that the index can be searched in the Bloom filter. What I mean by that is we talked about this string going into the hash function and then coming out as a number, and the number marking as a set bit in the Bloom filter. So this is a process that happens when we are inserting a string. So the similar process has to happen when we are searching for if the string is available or not. So the server hits this hash function and it sends in the string, let's say John here in this case. So it sends John into the hash function and it checks the Bloom filter if if the index with the hash function value John is present in this Bloom filter or not. So if it is not present, so there are two cases here. So if it is not present, we can 100% be sure that John is not present in the database, right? Because it is not set, right? It is 0 here, it is not 1. If it is 0, then we can be 100% sure that John is not present in the database, and we can immediately return to the client saying that John is not present, right? So we are not querying the database in this case. So if it is 1, if let's say instead of 0 it is 1, then there are two cases in that. First case is that it can be John, right? It can be John, or else it might not be John, because this hash function, what happens is that any string can get the same index for some other string also. Let's say John, let's say instead of John we can say Jane, and when we send that into the hash function, there is some probability that we will get the same number back. So when we get the same number back, we are setting the same bit here. So let's say here index is 2, so we are setting the index number 2 here, but that is for Jane and not for John. But when we query this, in this case John, when we're querying this, when we see this second bit number 2 is set here, we should not be sure that it is 100% in the case of John. So we have to confirm that it is John in this case. So for that, what we'd be doing is, if this is 1 here, if this is the bit is 1 or the bit is set here, we'll be immediately querying the database, and then we will confirm that in this case John is present in the database or not. And similarly, then we would be sending back the response, and the server would be sending back the response to the client. So in this case also we are querying the database, but the number of queries, if you take let's say in 10 seconds average, the number of queries are reduced to a total extent. Let's say, it depends upon the queries also, but it is not 100%. We are not accessing the database every time, right? So we are stopping if it is not set in this case. As we talked about this John and Jane having the same index value, so that thing happening is called as a hash collision. So that's what happens when two numbers or two strings have the same hash value. So that's what we call as collision. Is there a way to solve this collision problem? Actually, there are two ways which we can try to reduce the collisions, not entirely stop that, but we can do that to reduce the number of collisions. So one thing we can do is we can increase the array size. So in this case is 64. Some people use 32, some people use 16. It depends on the use case, but as you increase the array size, the probability of the collision decreases. Okay, so the higher the array size, the lower is the probability of your collision. In plain words, you can say that if the array size is high, then you can expect the collisions to be less, and that's one way. The other way we can think of this is that instead of one hash function, we can have multiple hash functions, and then we can set every bit or we can set every index that comes out of the hash function. So using multiple hash functions, that's actually a completely different case, because you can have let's say you use 3 hash functions, and after using 3 hash functions, what happens is you set all the 3 hash functions, right? You set the indexes coming out of those 3 hash functions as 1. In this case, let's take 0, 1 and 2. So you are using 3 hash functions and they give indexes back as 0, 1 and 2. So each one we turn that from 0 to 1, or if it is 1 already, we keep it as 1. So the final result would be like these three indices would be containing value 1. So next again someone is querying with some other value or other string, and we are sending that through three different hash functions, and this time we are getting 1, 2 and 3. Let's say 3 is not set. Let's say that 3 is 0 and 1 and 2 are of course 1. So in this case we are having values like 1, 1 and 0. In that case, when we are having three hash functions, most importantly, in that case what would be happening is that if all the bits are set, then we can say that there is a high probability of that string being present in the database. Let me repeat that. If all the bits are set, then there is a high probability of that number or that string being present in the database. I said high probability and it's not 100% sure. So to make that sure, you go and check the database and you do this similar thing here what we have done before, and you give back the response to the client. So that's for this if you have all as 1. So if you have all the bits as not set, or we can say if all the bits are 0, then you can be 100% sure that the string is not present in the database, because any one of them is not 1, right? So there is no chance that it would be available in the database. So that's why we would immediately return, as we say here, immediately return some response to the client that the string is not present. So you can see that Bloom filters are actually theoretically it's being implemented now, but it has been invented in the 1970s. So that's quite an old concept that's being used in this current generation, and it's really most efficient way to query. So yes, this video is not about implementing Bloom filters. I definitely will do the implementation someday. But this is just giving you a concept of what Bloom filter is and what happens inside this. So if you understand this, I think it would be fairly easy to implement this. And most importantly, this hash function should not be implemented by ourselves, because there's a high chance that it's not efficient. So you can use some hash like Jenkins or something like that. So use some other third-party hash that's already on the internet. So you can use that. So yeah, so that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and do like, share and subscribe if you like this video. Thank you.